You know, when I was younger, I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. Plan A was to be the starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, whereas Plan B was to be the starting pitcher for the New York Mets. To this day, I'm still pretty confident I could have accomplished either one if it weren't for falling into a video game addiction in my teenage years. Even so, that video game addiction led to a love of computers and a love of computer games, which led me to watching competitive games and eventually turning on the World Cyber Games one October evening, finding League of Legends. That was my sophomore year of high school, where I had no clue who I was as a person, no clue who I wanted to be, but League gave me a weird sense of direction that eventually led to me starting this YouTube channel. I uploaded my very first video on October 31st, 2012, meaning this week marks my 10-year anniversary on YouTube. I think most YouTubers fall into YouTube by accident. Like in traditional drawing and painting, there's a genre called naive art, which refers to any sort of art created by a person that has no formal training. This means the artist never learned the rules of perspective or color theory or anatomy or composition. Art has all these fundamentals that many people who want to make stuff study, but for whatever reason, naive artists never learned them, but they still made things anyway. Because they never learned these fundamentals of what it was they were supposed to do, they sort of just broke all these rules that everyone else was following, and sometimes did so in really beautiful ways. YouTubers are a very similar breed. I've often found on this platform the less connected you are to professional video, like film or television, the more likely you'll be to find success. Because not knowing the rules of film gives you an edge, where you're free to make stuff however you want. Much like a naive artist, there's no tradition or fundamentals that you're being encouraged to follow. You can really do whatever you want, which leads to some super inventive visual techniques and avant-garde storytelling that I've seen over the years. I mean, frankly speaking, you have to not be a professional to get the sorts of ideas that many YouTubers get and think that making these videos is a good idea. That's probably the greatest asset any creator on this site has. And I think that's probably the greatest asset I've had on my channel. I was never taught when I was a kid that video games can't be art. I certainly wasn't taught that sports weren't worth caring about or that video games were any less important than sports, so eventually I found myself making documentaries, my own little pieces of art about competitive video games. I knew next to nothing about film or narrative writing, or really writing in general. I was a college dropout that had such a hyperfixation on video games, I was just demanding the world make a career for myself here. As a result, many of the early documentaries I made were built off of nothing but instinct. I didn't know what I was doing with these stories. I just knew that I loved these stories, I was passionate about them, and I wanted to share them with other people. Somehow, that was enough. That was enough to get a couple of people caring. It was enough to get a few of these videos to go viral. There was something about them that people loved, and I just loved making them. But not all success is equal. Some of these videos went viral, but others flopped by comparison, which puzzled me. All of these subjects were equally interesting to me, but apparently not to my audience. I tried to do a little bit of research on what was causing each success and failure, but all I could come up with was the algorithm. Since YouTube views mostly come from people who aren't subscribed to your channel, and instead come from who the site chooses to recommend your videos to, I thought that was the cause of these successes and failures. Good titles, good thumbnails, and crazy story subjects must be what's causing some of these videos to succeed, so that's what I started to focus on. Why not try to plan my videos around this kind of stuff? Why not tell the craziest stories I'm aware of in the League scene so I can use really eye-catching titles and thumbnails? A top-lane prodigy that quits League of Legends voluntarily to join the army because he'd just rather be in the military than play another game of League. How about tell the story of an owner who was arrested by the FBI and arguably the most hated man in America at one point? Why not discuss the breaking story of a match-fixing scandal involving some of the top players and teams in the League of Legends competitive scene as it occurs? Nope. These videos flopped hard. Seeing this really terrified me. I was trying to lean into titles and thumbnails and make documentaries on what I believed would be the most interesting subjects that anyone would want to watch, but weirdly enough, these videos got worse and worse views, even worse than the previous documentaries I had considered failures before. God, if these videos can't get any traction, how horrible are the views going to be when I go back to making normal stuff? This is the trap that every YouTuber falls into. See, the problem with making naive art is you can never see what you did wrong. Not knowing the fundamentals of perspective may let you break the rules of perspective in unique ways. Given the right context and combination of other elements, people might really like this in certain pieces, but sometimes people might not like it. Someone may look at a piece that breaks perspective and say that it sucks. You won't be able to look at your own work and see why. The curse of a YouTuber is to have a creative mind free from the limits of building with any sort of structure, but you're also always cursed to never build with the structure everyone else gets to use. And while some of your work may come off as beautifully engaging to an audience if you accidentally create something really great, if you mess up and you maybe focus a little bit too much on things that don't really matter, you'll never see the issues your content really has. It was right in front of my face, but I was entirely oblivious. These videos were bad. They may have been great stories, but a great story told badly is a bad story, and I was telling a lot of bad stories. It took a while for me to realize this. In fact, I kind of just quit YouTube for a little while and got offline. At one point, the regular world pulled me away from the computer, which I resisted at first, never knowing much other than a terminally online lifestyle, but eventually I came to appreciate it. Being away from League and the computer for the first time in 10 years helped me grow a lot. I started reading books again. I moved to a new city. I got out in nature. And a lot of other great things happened. And in the midst of all that, some incredibly kind creators showed up and helped me grow in a way I could never have expected. I got hired to work on a TV show, pre-production, post-production, and even little cameo appearances. I got to work with a real documentary crew, one that were veterans of making great documentaries in the world of traditional sports, even winning an Oscar, and I got to help guide them to telling a story in the world of League of Legends. This was the moment where I finally got to see actual professionals and how they tell a story that I finally learned what was missing. Being an art nerd, I had always known that there were elements and principles of design in things like drawing and painting, but being an idiot, I never realized film had its own set of fundamentals. A-plot, B-plot structures, writing with causality, the Kuleshov effect. These are all simple concepts that any intro to screenwriting class may teach, but for whatever reason, I had never considered this kind of stuff could be applied to my own stupid YouTube videos. The instant I began thinking about it, though, it made so much sense. The videos I had made in the past that had succeeded had mainly found success because, yeah, they were driven by passion, but they were also good videos. Unbeknownst to me, I had accidentally written A-plots and B-plots, meanwhile back at the ranch moments, and other elements that make for a genuinely good documentary. The videos that failed by comparison, I was just too focused on things that weren't important and made bad videos. All of this might be pretty basic stuff that I could have learned if I just sat in on a single film class at the local university, but all of it was enough to reinvigorate my creative spirit and get me working on something new. That was at the start of 2022, when I began storyboarding the Khan documentary. I spent a number of months working on the script and writing it, working on editing and the visuals I'd be using, trying to run multiple plot lines and use various different themes, moments of foreshadowing and callbacks all across the narrative, and the final product came out about a month ago, and honestly, it's not perfect. There's a lack of a visual theme in many of the images and typefaces I used, there's some over-expository dialogue and lulls in the pacing, but even so, I think that documentary is probably the best thing I've ever made. That was the first time I had made a project where everything was intentional, from start to finish, where I had planned and worked out everything from beginning to end, and nothing was on accident. I tried to use structure and all these fundamentals, and even if some of it didn't land as perfectly as I thought it would, I can see that. For the first time in my creative life, I can see where I went wrong. And that's got me more motivated than ever. More motivated to make new YouTube videos, new documentaries on this channel, plus new documentaries about not League stuff on a new Not League channel. It's got me more motivated than ever to make videos that are hopefully good enough that people will want to pledge to my Patreon to see early releases. I'm so excited with so many ideas I might even want to reboot the second channel again, and that feeling of excitement that there's more to be done, it's one of the most powerful things I think I've ever felt as a person, which almost mirrors my experience with League of Legends in a really nice way. League is a game where you aren't ever finished playing it. There's no end state. No matter how long you've played, or how many characters you might learn, or how good you might become, or what rating you might reach, you're not ever totally finished. If you're looking for it, there's always going to be ways for you to improve. There will always be new challenges you can go after. You can learn new characters, there's new competitors to face, there's new champions to play, and new ratings to go after. I've had a lot of really cool professional opportunities recently that have been the sort of thing I could never even dream of getting to experience. But as fun as they may have been, there's something that keeps me coming back to the internet. So much of my life has been spent alongside the internet, with all sorts of weird hyperfixations, loads of interests that I might take way too seriously, tons of new things waiting to be discovered, and plenty of hobbies to fall down into. So no matter what professional opportunities may come my way next, I hope I'll always still be here for many more decades to come.